welcome back to The Games, my beautiful, beautiful audience. Today, I'm very excited to introduce my special guest, creator of a very underrated series entitled Sunk Cost Galaxy. By the way, link is in the description below to check that out. He's a venture capitalist who invested privately at the inception of Star Citizen, I believe. Is that correct, Bootcha?
Yes, that is believed. We're shortly after the announcement, I became a venture capitalist with it.
Really, honestly, I want to spend a lot of time talking to you, Bootcha. In this particular video, the focus is going to be on Chris Roberts and the spark behind the idea of Star Citizen. I have so much more to talk about than just what we're talking about in this video, so perhaps we can make other videos. But can you explain right now to those listening what the sunk cost fallacy principle is that I believe you based your working title Sunk Cost Galaxy from?
Yes, a very straightforward pun. Basically, sunk cost fallacy is the belief that if you put more money into a project that is not showing results, then that will show results. Basically, you're throwing good money after bad. So you start getting to this dilemma of, should I continue to throw money at this or should I cut it off? And the sunk cost fallacy becomes oh no, just throw more money at it. It'll, it will pay dividends in the future because, there's so much resources going into this. Because there's so much going into it that it can't fail.
So you've invested so much of yourself that basically in whatever it is that you're investing in, either emotionally or financially, that you're not really looking towards the future. You're kind of just like saying, I've done this in the past. Like, I've done so much in the past. I've invested so much that I might as well just stick with it regardless of the future.
Yes, on a purely financial side, when you do that, you are pretty much dedicating yourself to the project above all other considerations. Like, for example, trading is sort of like, if you throw money into this project and it's really going slow and you had your eyes on a different project and it's going really fast, all your money is in the first project and it's going slow. And
it's
sort
just
of like,
sitting
well,
there.
the lost income sort of flies by on a different project.
Right, because you see something like sexy or something's doing something that you wish that your investment was doing, but you're looking at the other one and you're like, shit. Next question I have for you is, so what is your occupation in the real world? Like, what do you do in the real world?
I myself, excuse me. I stock trade for myself.
Okay, cool.
From public companies. So just a day trader.
So day trader on. Okay, I used to trade plenty on the stock exchange and equities, so like we have that in common. That's cool, dude. A lot of people will try and look at this video and debunk you and say, well, Bootcha doesn't know anything because he has nothing to do with the world of finance, and here you actually are a trader. So I take what you say a little bit more seriously because of that. That's cool, man. How much? I'm going to ask you a question, and I hopefully you can answer it. But how much was your total investment into Star Citizen? Like, what did you put into it?
That is a question I can't answer just because that is locked with the contract.
I figured. Can we say that it is a hefty figure?
It is a hefty figure, yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, so I figured, being the fact that you got involved originally and that you were on board with this idea, I would figure that you were like, hey, I'm going to get into this because your belief at that particular time was, hey, this is a great idea. I can go off of past experiences from Chris. Did you do all the research that you have done in your series Sunk Cost Galaxy after you invested or before you invested?
Sad to say, I did it after the investment. I mean, again, this is sort of like it was a case of, I had an opportunity upcoming. So how I became an investor with it is, I guess, a story. So so I was actually hanging out and helping Ben Lesnick and the Wing Commander News guys, the CIC people. So I was, helping them out, transporting them around in Austin when the initial presentation was going on. And so like I got to know them, and they invited me to a dinner with Chris Roberts at the Iron Cactus in Austin,
Okay.
down on 6th Street.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought for a moment, it's sort of like, okay, like if I want to invest in this, this is my chance. It's sort of like, so I didn't really I didn't have a lot of time to spend to actually
And
research.
it was
all
like,
the
you were
history.
excited probably. You're on the ground floor. You're talking to people that are very well known in the industry. So you're like, hey, like this is something I'm getting excited about. Did you ever speak with Chris directly? Did you ever speak with Chris?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
Part of the dinner was so in my back pocket I had my blank checkbook out, ready to go. But like, I talked with Chris, sort of like sat down with him, sort of asked him questions, sort of like those fact-finding questions, sort of okay, what is the timeline of this project that you want to accomplish? And the timeline was we want Squadron 42 released at the latest 2014. And then we will continue. We will take the profits of that. We will continue working on Star Citizen, because we don't think that's going to be fully implemented of what we wanted to do at the time. But expansions, whatnot. We were going to have sort of.
So at the dinner, it was clearly defined, right? It was like clearly defined, like Squadron 42, 2040, and this was back in 2012, correct?
Yes.
It was defined as 2014. Squadron 42 comes out. After that, we can devote more of the profits and the money that we get from Squadron 42 into making the universe, into making the public universe, into making Star Citizen. Was that how it was presented to you?
Yes, I mean,
it's
like
interesting.
Some of the background tech was going to be sort of like it was going to be developing Star Citizen as well. Like at release, we would have something. I guess
playable.
Here we are, 6 years down the line.
Right,
so like, imagine what we have now was initially going to be sort of like that test bed at 2014.
Right, I'm playing footage right now of your video, and the interesting thing is I'm watching the early Squadron 42 footage, and I'm thinking to myself, I'd be pretty happy with that. Like if that in 2012 and in 2014 I had a working model of what they just showed in this video here, I'd be kind of happy with that, and then I'd feel a little bit more comfortable. But when 2014 rolled along, Bootcha, and you like, were you still invested in 2014? Like when did you divest? Yes, that's a good question. When did you divest from the project? Like what year was it?
November of 2015.
Of 2015. Okay, so like if by 2014 or even 2015, say, like the single player campaign came out, like Squadron 42 came out, would you have felt a little bit more comfortable in the investment?
Yes, because I would have started to see returns on the investment.
Right. Because like, how long are you supposed to wait as an investor? Now, this is an interesting thing that a lot of like the general fan base does not get, because they're not really technically invested with their money. So they're not just they're not sitting around waiting on a return. They're not sitting around looking at their money, literally doing nothing. In fact, they're not sitting around, in your case, looking at their money potentially being less money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. As I mean, like the employees and the costs, and we talk about that in a video I'd get into with the financials, which is very general based, but it kind of gives people an idea on where SIG is at. Do you believe that when you initially got into Star Citizen, it was the idea of it, right?
Oh yes, like I love the idea. I mean, I was there at the presentation myself. It was sort of, watching the cinematic, the sizzle reel, and watching the demonstration, and sort of like I myself kind of looking there and said, wow, this is a game I really like. And then sort of like when the website crashed, I was sort of like, oh wow, there are a lot of other people that really like this too.
And they had to actually go to Kickstarter because his site went down. So many people were interested in this.
And the reason why going to Kickstarter was because when that website went down, I mean, sort of lost, as I said in one of those videos, it's sort of like lost time is lost funding. And so when that website was down and
he was losing money, he was probably very upset. He was like, shit, I need to get something going on here because no money's coming in right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so that's why the side Kickstarter was set up. So like everybody says sort of like, the Kickstarter was for 2 million, and that's incorrect. The side Kickstarter was for 500,000 just to keep money coming in. And the thought was, okay, we are projecting about $2 million for the project. If the Kickstarter can bring in 500,000, golden. And so that way we can actually get that money and transfer it over to,
Right.
the accounts on CIG, whereas
Right.
CIG could continue crowdfunding from their own side, and they didn't have any you have to reach this much money in order to get that much money.
Did you have more information than the standard person because you were a venture capitalist and you put money into it? Did they give you a little bit more insight into their books, as it were, back then?
I thought they did, but as
Mhm.
it turns out,
Oh,
it was not as genuine as I had thought. I mean, this is also part of the reason why I got out. Chris Roberts promises, all this money will go into development, and eventually there's going to be no money left. In the perfect world, there's like everything goes into the product. We spent all the money. Here's the release. Here comes the profit. And then sort of like based upon sort of like how much the actual development costs were. After that, that's when after my initial equity is paid off, that's when I start to see the profit. There were a lot of opportunities for saving costs that were kind of cast
neglected
aside.
or badly managed yeah. So generally, in terms like when a business has expansion, that's a good thing. I've never invested privately before. It would scare the shit out of me. It would scare the shit out of me because I'd always wonder, like, how solid are these numbers? What were the other warning signs that you felt along your journey that made you kind of start to question this all?
So Chris Roberts decided to not base himself in Austin with the rest of the development team. Instead, opted to base himself out at Santa Monica, Hollywood. California. Yes.
Yeah.
And that was his decision because, that's where Ortwin was. That was where his Hollywood contacts were, and that's where he wanted to be. And that's the person he wanted to be. He wanted to be the Hollywood person. And so at the time, it was sort of like, you know what? Okay, we can deal with this. The next big thing that actually sort of, threw off a siren and a warning bell was that the Elms brothers, if you remember from chapter 3.
That knew Chris's brother, they're the friends of Chris's brother, correct?
Yes. The ones that went to Gizmondo. And now, offhand, I forget which specific Elms brother it was, but he was the CFO of Gizmondo in the United Kingdom, working with Warthog and Tiger Telematics and whatnot. And so, as you know, Gizmondo is the biggest video game scam in the history of
the industry. Yeah.
Gizmondo! We can thank Tiger Telematics for this piece of shit. It's a handheld gaming console from the 7th generation era. It came out on March 19th of 2005. Sold a whopping not quite 25,000 units.
If you're one of the lucky people that's never heard of the Gizmondo, you better be thanking your lucky stars you've never heard of this piece of shit.
And what a piece of shit. This thing is essentially like a TomTom and an N-Gage fucked and had a bastard kid. And, yeah. Now I know what you're thinking. We're talking about this thing really bad. And, well, yeah, we are, because it's a piece of shit. It had GPS functionality that didn't work for shit. It had a SD card input and a camera because, well, fuck it, everything has to have that nowadays. It had multimedia capability that only supported Windows Media Video and didn't come with the tools to encode it to that format. So you're fucked if you whatever. Let's see, it also had SMS messaging and not a real keypad to type on. I'd rather type on the devil's taint using my tongue. It didn't work at all. And then, it talked about online gaming, which was great, except for the fact it didn't have Wi-Fi. Although it did come chock full of smart ads.
Ooh, smart ads. That sounds delicious.
Yes, and run by the Swedish mafia.
So that's a little bit, that's a little bit scary.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, like, I have been told that the Elms brother was on the level, that he was an honest worker, but at the same time, sort of like,
we're involved in this. Yeah, right.
It's like just
somehow.
How much did you know, or how much did you miss? This is something that I'm not sure that can be answered to my satisfaction. And so, like, I'm just sort of like, ooh, okay, this is probably a problem. This is the case of sort of like, who Robert surrounded himself with.
Yes,
sort of
his
like,
entourage. This is why I find you fascinating. You are involved in this project or were involved in this project in a way in which not a very small percentage of people were involved in it. When it comes down to all the noise that I hear, ultimate fanboys, and then you got ultimate trolls and ultimate haters, the one thing that they don't have is this experience that you have, and you're sharing it. There's nobody that I know of out there that is doing this to the degree that you are, and I find it refreshing. And I hope that other people can look at this and say, hey, maybe I'm just going to take a breath here, and I'm actually going to listen to Bootcha, because he's done things that I haven't done. He's been involved with the project like I have not been involved in it. Like with any venture, it could be none of us know. None of us really know. We can go about the variables all day long, and we could talk about all the different things, but at the end of the day, none of us know if it's going to be a success or if it's going to be a failure. But I think this type of discussion is really important when it comes to the fact that you have an experience that is unique, and that really no one that I have met on the internet has dealt with and been so open and honest and frank with. So I really appreciate that about you. I want to talk about Chris a little bit. Let's get to the focus of this video here. So, So he's the founder, the creator, the space lord of the verse. At a very young age, he started, I think it was like 18 years old, making games. Like I said, the title that I knew him from and still do associate with him is the Wing Commander series. But he got this bug, and I want to talk about this a little bit because not a lot of people talk about this like you talk about it as well. I believe he and I'm guessing here, like once he started putting actors into his narratives, I think it had been about the mid 90s. I'd have been like 13, 14 or somewhere. And do you think that when he got involved in putting actors into his games, that he started getting this Hollywood, this itch, this bug, that he wanted to do more than just the games? Like he actually wanted to start to produce like movies. Do you feel that?
Yes, that is pretty much what happened. Roberts never really let go of that Hollywood dream. Again, sort of like he wanted to be in LA, Santa Monica, Hollywood, because that's where he felt he belonged.
Yes, which is what you had mentioned when you were in Austin, and he said, you know what, I'm going to leave here, I'm going to head back over to Hollywood. I think that was a lot having to do with Sandy, honestly, because look how Sandy,
there was a Sandy thing involved,
it was a definitely Sandy thing, because Sandy was very, very, I mean, she still is, you can see it, like, oh my god, when Squadron 42 got shot and they were showing all the footage, Sandy had the biggest smile.
The thing with Sandy is that Sandy grew up wanting to be a model and an actress. And sort of like the way I look at it is Sandy never got the break that she was looking for. And past projects, let's not discuss a lot of past projects. These are like,
she didn't get the break she wanted in Hollywood, so
but she still wants it.
She still wants it, and she still thinks she's going to get that break. She's living that dream, and you kind of get the sense that when she's talking, she wants whatever's best for her dreams of being this actress. But like, even if you watch her in like Around the Verse, and it's her and Chris, like sometimes I get this feeling. I look at Sandy looking at Chris, and I'm thinking she's thinking, you asshole, like why am I not famous yet? You should help me make me famous as soon as possible.
The Chris Roberts experience is sort of like, I'm making the third sequel of my franchise game. I'm having all these big actors come in. It's a big success. There's nothing else for me to do in this industry. I've done it all, because at that time, sort of like the MMO stuff wasn't really taking off to the extent that, when World of Warcraft came out. Right. So Wing Commander 3 was sort of like the height of the best that Chris Roberts could do, and sort of like, well, I want to do more. Ever ambitious at the time. So he looked towards Hollywood as sort of like, well, why not do it for real?
He came out with one popular title, had Nicolas Cage, I think Lord of War, and then he had like a couple stinkers. Oh, okay, yeah.
So the one movie that he made, directed, wrote, produced, and all that himself was the Wing Commander movie,
which was horrible. That was a horrible movie.
Which is not good. Which got the director's chair firmly removed from him forevermore.
Right. So that was his chance, and he failed at that. Okay, I go back to one of your episodes. I can't remember which one, where you're talking about, and this I found fascinating. One of your sources, who's named anonymous, though, we're kind of talking about the inception, like how Star Citizen came about as an idea, was that Chris was in a very bad, according to you, a very bad financial spot, and that he actually was at the point of his life where he was in debt and he owed a lot of people a lot of money, and he was a used rental car salesman, and he was in it because an actor friend of his had said, hey, if you get into this, not only are you going to make money doing this, but you're also going to meet people in Hollywood that could be influential and help you with your Hollywood career. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so like that's a really hard spot to be in. Like, as a man trying to live your life, and you're already enamored with the success and fame of the Wing Commander series, of being a kind of, like you said, in that era when we were kids, those guys were rock stars. He had that kind of fame going. He went into movies. Things started kind of, I feel like as it went into the 2000s, things for Chris started to kind of like chunk apart. Like, you know, like things weren't becoming success. Some of the projects weren't going the way expected. They weren't successes. They weren't grand slams. Then he gets into movies. That's not going so well. He had one decent title, two were kind of blah, the rest were stinkers. Things are kind of falling off. He gets kind of shunned from the community, from the Hollywood community, and now he's a salesman for rental cars. Oh shit, things are bad for Chris. And then boom. And this is the interesting part. There was a sound, it was on SoundCloud, and it was an interview that you had found with Sandy. Where did you find that? Where is that?
Let's see. Sonny's Diner. That was I'm trying to remember if those guys were either specifically for Star Citizen or if they were like a general gaming or general media sort of.
Was it just like a podcast of sorts, like a casual podcast where they had her on as a guest or something of that nature?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
I mean, sort of like, that's Sonny's Diner. I mean, like, I am going to be revisiting that interview and a couple more just because sort of like Sandy was very candid about Roberts and his position.
Very, very candid, to the point where, like, I believe what I had just stated is pretty well. I mean, like, listening to Sandy kind of makes me feel like everything I just kind of talked about, you know, like as far as what I recall as the events going up to that moment, pretty true, you know, because Sandy's like, hey, if you want to get back into the gaming field, go ahead, go for it, Chris, because that's what you do. Or just get a job. You know what I mean? Like, because we're hurting. We need some money. And so, like, Chris is kind of now in a position where he's thinking, like, I want to continue being Chris Roberts. So, like, what am I going to do?
Hi, I'm Chris Roberts. Ever since I saw Star Wars as a wide-eyed 8-year-old, I dreamt of being a hotshot pilot saving the galaxy, or a lovable rogue making my way across the cosmos. It inspired me to make Wing Commander and has influenced everything I've done since then. 10 years ago, after 20 years of making games, I was burned out, so I took a break. But I never stopped playing games nor loving them. And now, I'm ready to come back. And I'd like to show you something I've been working on.
Chris is in this whole hog. He wants us to be successful. And I question the inception of Star Citizen based upon the information that I'm receiving. Does that mean that it's going to change my mind on whether I think that the game is going to end up being successful? Here's my take on this, and I'll just leave it at this. I think, in a way, that marketing at this particular point in time is not as important. The model that they have now where they're selling ships is in fact their marketing. Chris took his car salesman rental experience and he applied it towards ship sales. Everybody's buying ships on the regular, and you can say that it's not anywhere near finished. It's an alpha. It's been an alpha for a very long time. For the 3 years that I've been playing, I've gone from my hangar with like Frankenstein movements to finally being able to kind of experience it first. But it took 3 years to get to that point. And that's, I think, what the real issue is. People are like, hey, man, why did it take you 3 years to get from this point to this point? There's a lot of people that are like, I'm fine with that. I understand both sides of this argument. For good or bad, it seems like the money keeps on flowing.
Look at it, the metrics of the finances without actually having the book in front of you. Because the funding tracker, we kind of have to take as, we have to assume that it's being honest. Because if the funding tracker isn't honest, that raises a whole lot more questions that are, related to fraudulent activity. And so we have to believe that the funding tracker is being honest. Now, there have been some, background analytics, but the funding tracker in relationship to like how many citizens there are, how many ships have been bought, like how many actual ships there are as opposed to melts, it's at best translucent and at worst completely opaque.
And even then you don't know. Like the only way you would know for certain is if they're a public company and then they're required to file, publicly, and you can see all the numbers and they have to be legitimate because it's the same numbers they give to the IRS. Those numbers are legit. As a private company, that's the scary part. I can understand. See, this is why I'm saying, like, while I'm a fan, while I'm like into the game, while I want it to be a success, this is why I value your input, because you have invested, you put actual money into it, like a lot. So like you said, so have other people who have bought the ships, but you were going in at this, looking at it from a business standpoint. Some people go into it, they're buying the ship, they're just thinking about the game. They want the game to be like the most fantastic fucking thing that they've ever had in their life. I hope that it is. But like you went into it and you're like, I like the idea. I want to invest in this company. I believe in the idea. I want to see a return. I want to see some type of numbers that have some type of semblance of order. You got a voice that's very unique in the community that I think should be listened to. That's why I really enjoyed your series, and I look forward to seeing more of it. By the way, down in the link below, check it out, guys. It's really worth a watch. I think it's probably some of the best material out there when it comes to looking behind the curtain and talking about the actual people that are employed. And Chris, it's great. It's called Sunk Cost Galaxy. Go check it out, guys. Thanks, Bootcha, for being on the show, and everyone watching. Appreciate you guys, and I will see you on the next vid.